And good morning, Hoosier fans, and welcome to a live edition of Hoosier Morning After from Bloomington. This is Hoosier Morning After Illinois. Yesterday afternoon, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to lose to the Fighting Illini 74-57, taking the Hoosiers' season record to 16-7. 7-5 in Big Ten play. What a disappointing game, guys. What a game that was in hand in the first half. Felt like we had pretty good chances. Guys fought them pretty well, took a 2-point lead into halftime. And some great play overall by a lot of players to step up, with Trace going out after the first 4 minutes with foul trouble and everything. And then the second half just can't put it together. Kind of trade baskets for a little bit in the beginning. IU just kind of still looked a little flat coming out of halftime, not with the energy and everything that they needed. And there was kind of a real big turning point in the second half. Right around the 13-minute mark, IU forced an out-of-bounds turnover from Illinois. Williams, I believe, stepped on the line. Then we go to the other side, and Parker Stewart has a three-point shot, not wide open, but pretty open. Good play for him on the edge, and you could just feel the crowd was ready to explode at that point. IU at that point was up by 4. Shooting and making that basket obviously puts IU up by 7, and you feel like you are kind of putting your foot on their throat at that point, and really are able to get things going and handle this game and everything, despite not having your star player in that first half, and just good things happening at that point, despite a little kind of lackluster play. But that shot is missed. Then Illinois goes down and gets a three-point shot to make that and cut the lead to 1. And then IU after that gets a few other turnovers, and Illinois gets up, and they control the lead the rest of the game. So very frustrating. It also seemed like after kind of that point, the team really got deflated. I was sitting with Jared, and around 7 minutes left in the game, it just looked like the guys had given up. There wasn't a fight to them. There wasn't a fight to try to get back, to go at them and everything. And I'm not saying the whole team. There were a few guys that were still trying to get into it and fight and everything like that. And in the end, this game doesn't hurt IU's tournament chances. I know a lot of you, that's a benchmark for this season. And for me as well, that's a benchmark for this season. We need to get into that tournament. And it doesn't really hurt those chances. It's just more of a bummer because it was a huge missed opportunity. That's really, when you boil down to it, what this game was a missed opportunity. If they win this game, you could pretty much punch their ticket to the tournament, barring obviously a crazy meltdown or some injuries or something that could have derailed things going forward. So just a frustrating thing. But hey, I got to come up here, got to be in Bloomington and everything. You can obviously hear by the fact that this episode is a little bit more bass heavy in my voice, that I had a good time. Didn't really hold back screaming and yelling and having a good time at the game. It was fun to be there, see the atmosphere and everything. Again, a shout out to Lee Butler for offering up and sitting in his seats. Fantastic seats, as you saw probably some pictures that I posted, being in the 5th row there. No better place to watch a game and see things up close, catch those things that you don't really see when you're watching on TV and everything. Love a little bit more attitude that I've seen out of this team than I've seen in past IU teams. A little more confidence, a little more chatty and everything. Kind of saw that in the Bahamas, obviously. But saw it again here in Big Ten play. That was exciting to see. And just the overall atmosphere. Fans did a good job of bringing it. Loved all the again, the team, the fans were ready to explode at many moments in this game, and were loud and rambunctious and man, if that Parker Stewart three would have gone in, they would have exploded and had just such energy continuing that lead and everything. But just great to be there at the game, get to sit with Jared as we kind of talk through the game and everything as it was going on, and then great to go to Switchyard afterwards and meet all the guys that I've talked to either on Twitter, a lot of the assembly call guys who I've sat here and talked to a screen over the internet with about a lot of games and stuff, and we've never met in person. So it was great to finally meet Coach in person, Andy and Jared and Galen in person, and Jay and so many of you guys. Amanda, who I've got to meet and in the Bahamas and everything, get closer with, Josh and everything, Martha, the mop lady, finally get to see Martha in person and talk through things. So really good to be there and come together as a community, because that's what's really strong about us as IU fans and a fan base, is that through thick and thin, we're going to get together and just celebrate as a community. So wished it would have been a win. Man, if it would have been a win, that would have been a fantastic evening. You probably would have seen a lot groggier, a lot more hoarse Chad right now. A little bit deeper of a voice, probably down here is where I'd be had that game been won. But yeah, just some interesting things. Sorry to go from positive to let's deep down into it. Just some bummer things, and I think that we have almost established that there's a definite pattern for Trace Jackson Davis to struggle against high-level, talented big men. Don't know what it is. The physicality of them that scares him, if it's something mental. Wish he could figure out what that is and get past it, get over that edge, get over that hump. Jared Odell, one of my favorite past IU players, has been getting a little bit more active on Twitter and everything. And he tweeted out during the game, Trace Jackson Davis has got to stop trying to outbody him. Use your quickness and be deceptive to make him get off balance. The size is too much to overcome, but there are ways to beat him. And yeah, that's definitely the case. Jared and I kept yelling to each other, or saying to each other during the game, why didn't he try to face him up and drive on him or make a move on him? We've seen Trace do that. I don't know if that plays into more of if there's, and I hate to say this because it sounds mean to say, if there's a fear there of him going against someone that's bigger, driving on him, that he's going to get blocked or bodied or whatever. But Kofi doesn't move a lot. He just sits there in the paint, and he needed to get him moving some more. Needed to try to shoot a 10, 15-foot shot. Coach even was asked this in the post game, why didn't Trace Jackson Davis try to shoot that stuff? And he pretty much said that it's because he doesn't have the confidence to do it. And if he's not confident about it, then he's not going to feel like he can do it in the games. There was one play where I thought he did use his kind of bit of his quickness and his ability to spin when he received the ball on the right block, kind of near the sideline, and spun over his left shoulder along the baseline, and then used the rim to protect himself from Kofi coming back and blocking him, and got a reverse layup. And that was good. That was what he needed to try to be doing. But other times where he tried to spin off his right shoulder, like he likes to, and go up, he did get a shot off, but Kofi was able to stay right there with him and keep his body on him and alter that. So he missed a lot of those shots. Just wish the plan would have been to get him to be a little bit more mobile with the ball, causing Kofi to have to be mobile as well. Because being there and seeing it in person, there were a lot of times that Kofi looks like he gets tired quickly and easily. Just in warm-ups even, we noticed that he sweats quickly. All the other players looked pretty dry, and Kofi had those big old sweat marks on his chest already, and pretty shiny on the face because he was sweating. And you could see that in the game where he would get tired. And I'm disappointed we weren't able to see that and use that against them and get him to have to move a little bit more. We did a good job with him in the first half when Trace was out. Michael Durr had some great minutes in there on him. Race Thompson played his butt off. Race did a great job. At the end of the second half, he was great against Kofi, and then in the second half as well, we used him a lot in this mismatch. A lot of times he had, I think it's Ballard, they're really good 3-point shooter on him, or Plummer, excuse me. A lot of times they had Plummer on him, and had a great mismatch there and was able to take him on the block and got some good baskets in the second half. Race finished with the top points of the team in this game with 13. So really liked what we saw out of Race in this game. It's very interesting to see, and I'll get to that when we get to the numbers, but Miller and Stewart were combined 2 for 4 from 3, and that's not good. Miller didn't even take a single shot in this game. That's criminal. There were times where Jared would look over to me and would be like, we got to get Miller a shot. Miller looks like he's ready to go. Miller's fired up. And not to say that Miller didn't have a good game, because I think he had a fairly decent game doing a lot of good things beyond shooting the basket or being able to shoot the basket. Did some good things on defense and some great movement and ball screens, but he was definitely locked in and had some fire in his eyes, and it's sad that we didn't run anything to get the ball to him. And I think it's interesting because that leads into, in the press conference, basically Coach alluded to the fact that there were times where he didn't know what play IU was calling when it was out there, or what play IU was running. And that goes back to where I said they just looked lost many times in this game. We noticed like Trace Jackson Davis going like, what are we doing kind of thing to X. And we've got to realize that Coach Woodson puts a lot of pressure on his point guards, and he very rarely will call the play on offense. He wants to hand that torch to the point guards. He wants to allow the point guards to call whatever play they want, and run the team. And that was evident right away when I saw him even in the Bahamas, because there was one point where there was an out-of-bounds play, and X looked to Coach as to what to call. And because it was in the Bahamas and it was a quieter venue, we could hear everything that people saying. And Coach said something to the effect of, you're the point guard, you call the play, kind of thing. And that's an early introduction to the fact of what we've seen. If you watch the games, especially if you're there live, you can look and see that there's not many times that the point guards look back to Woodson to see what he wants to call. So X is out there calling a lot of those plays. And I think X does a pretty good job with it. But I think X gets weighted more towards calling ball screens and post passes. And there doesn't seem to be many plays. I don't know if it's that they're not in the quiver. I mean, we've seen some. There has to be plays in there. But more plays need to be called to get Miller and Stewart open shots, to get them going. Especially in games like this where your main post guy, your main post scorer, goes out early. And then you've got to, and this, again, this is me just being continually hard on the point guard like our coach is. You have to be able to recognize that as the point guard and the leader of the team, that your star player, your post player is struggling. There's a fine line between still going to him and trying to get him going and realizing that it's a lost cause in the microcosm of that game and go to other things. Find some open shots for those perimeter guys. Get them some looks and everything. And X also had, I have to point out this moment. X is one of those players, and I wish I could remember this morning right now. I can't remember who it is, but IU has had those players in the past where they've done crazy things, and you're like, oh, no. And you're like, oh, yes. Oh, great. And it turns out something great. I think Troy Williams might have been that a little bit with his crazy moves and everything, things that he would do, and you're like, oh, here goes Troy again. X is like that with the three-point shot sometimes. And there was a moment in this game, too, where Jared and I both, you could verbally hear us both during X's three-point shot in the second half going, oh, no. Oh, yes. All right, X. So it's weird. It's weird that you have those moments with players like this. But he, overall, in these recent games in the middle part of this conference, I love what Johnson is doing for this team. He's a very skilled guard. I don't know where we would be without him. We would be struggling big time without him. And I think he's calmed down quite a bit. There was a time or two, Jared alluded to it, and I don't fully agree with him, but there was a foul called right in front of us that was highly questionable, and it was against X. And X was glaring at Bo. And Jared will say that Bo showed some restraint and that he could have called him for a T there. I don't know if he could. I haven't been to enough games, and I know how things can be. Player nowadays speaking up and talking a lot more, and I think they get away with a lot more of that nowadays. But yeah, you can see where X is clearly making a conscious decision to try to bottle himself a little bit more and hold it back a little bit more from those extra things that may have gotten him in trouble in the past. So I appreciate that, X. Good job. Keep up that mentality and everything. Lander got an extended run in this game. It was good to see him get some minutes and everything, just to give X a blow a few times. And I think after even that play, you could kind of see that X was a little fired up. So coach took him out and gave him a rest and let Lander get in there. He had 2 turnovers, 1 assist, was 1 for 3. Took a few decent shots, got to the basket, some good passes. It's just hard game for him to get any sort of rhythm or get going against Illinois, who has some very good guards in there. And a lot of time that was the tough matchup for IU to figure out. Was some very fast and crafty guards, and I felt like overall we did a really good job against them. And a lot of that was Trey Galloway continuing to be pestering and everything on defense, and X as well. X had a really good defense against Frazier. You could see those guys were getting tangled up quite a bit, and X was pushing his buttons and everything, and which led to eventually Frazier getting called on a push and everything. And it's great to see when you see that. Like I said, X has been on that razor's edge, and he's been one that's committed those fouls and stuff out of emotion, and he can weaponize that emotion as well. So it's always very rewarding to see when your player is able to use those emotions and be nagging, be that gnat, that nagging person there, trying to frustrate the other players. So good on X for that against Frazier. He did a good job against him. But just, I mean, looking at stats, you can see it. It's just IU shooting was not the thing. I mean, that's the basic thing. If you want to explain basketball is you take a ball and you put it in a hoop. Well, IU struggled to put that ball in the hoop. Into the game, 35% from the field, 23 from 3. Free throws were pretty good, 77%. Second half, though, is where the tape is, and it's going to again it's going to be that second part of that second half. I really feel they were 29% from the field, and 16% from three, 1 of 6. Whereas we had a pretty good first half defending Illinois, so their stats in the first half were 47% from the field and 43% from three, and then they ended the second half, or excuse me, that was their total. But the second half, they shot 53% from the field and 46% from the field. So there's where they eventually caught fire, because in the first half they did struggle to get the basket in, and there were some shots that were just dribbling around and it didn't fall for them. And I think it kind of switched hands in the second half, where IU had a lot of easy shots that just kind of didn't roll down for them. I mean, one of my favorite stats, I always like to say, is the missed layups. And IU missed 9 layups yesterday. You want to be able to make those layups, guys. 5 for 14 was the number on that. So frustrating to see those types of numbers come up. Turnovers, 10. That's kind of around the average that they want to have. 8 in the second half, though. Again, it's very telling. The second half was the trouble there. Had some good steals, 4 steals in the game. The rebound margin, let me look that up real quick. Sorry, I want to see that. Again, turnovers were split 10 and 10, and points off turnovers were split 5. Total rebounds, IU actually won the rebound race, 33-30, so that wasn't too far off. And bench points, IU had 8 to their 2, 18 to their 8. Points in the paint, IU beat that, 24-20. As you're going to see, when we didn't obviously shoot a high volume of threes and everything, and assists 11-13. So as you can see, it just everything's relatively even in those regards. The big standing out thing again is the just shooting overall. Just IU needs to get better high quality shots and get them in, and we need to get our guys that were brought in for shooting better looks at that 3-point shot and be able to hit those down. One last stat that I want to just kind of talk about too that's very interesting as I was looking at it. I know it's an imperfect shot or stat, but plus minus is always interesting to kind of look at, and I found it pretty shocking in this game. I didn't even think anyone would be out of the negative, and there are 3 players that didn't have a negative. I could say, because one had 0 and a plus minus, so I can't say they were all positive, but the positive or 0 non-negative plus minus in the game for IU was Jordan Geronimo with +3. He had the highest. And then the other 2, which was very surprising and shocking to me, was Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart, which is just crazy to think. I don't know why that floors me as much as it does, but IU needs to get those guys more involved. We want to see them be more involved in this game and get things going. And I think once we can figure that out and do that, it just opens up the world. It opens up the world for this team and everything moving forward. So again, great weekend. Great to be here. Great to see everybody. Those of you that I got to meet in person, it was a pleasure to meet you guys and finally put real life faces to some of those names on Twitter and everything like that. Appreciate the hospitality from everyone. It's great to be back in Bloomington and see everything. Grew up here and everything. And I've been back for games, but many of the games that I've been back for, I was visiting family up in Indy, and we just drive down for the game and then drive back up. So never really got a chance to be in Bloomington and soak it in. So it was great to be able to drive around, see some things. So much has changed, so many new buildings and everything. But it was great to be here. And despite that loss, great to be back in Assembly Hall and see that environment, and great job by the fans to show up and everything. Students, without getting into specifics, you need to work on your chants, guys. Those chants were a little rough. Overrated. That overrated chant, way too early, guys. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then just personal attacks and disses. That's not going to work at all. And then you saw, I guess, got in their heads a little bit to the sense that the Illinois players were putting you in your place at the end, pointing at the scoreboard and everything. So, way to show up. Keep showing up. Don't get frustrated in this team. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep being here talking about it to you guys. And I still am positive about this team. This team has a great ceiling, and it has a very rough floor. And sadly, we like to show both those things in many games. And this was another game where we got to see both the ceiling and the floor. And hopefully we can put together more games that we get 35 minutes out of them. I feel like this was one where we kind of got 25 maybe. Kind of started that second half. Had a few moments there, but I think 40 minutes may be a tough shoot for. I know people say we need to string together 40 minutes. Well, that's going to be a tough thing, I think, a tough hill to climb for this team. But I'll be confident as we move forward and everything. We've got a game coming up. Game coming up is on Tuesday, I believe, as I bring it up, against Northwestern, at Northwestern, Tuesday at 9 p.m., very late game on that one. Hopefully Miller Kopp shows up. It's going to be a very interesting game for him to go back home and see players that he's played with and everything. So that's never fun as a player that transfers within the conference that you play in. But we need to win that game. Should win that game. But the Big Ten's been a crazy conference, as it always can be. After that, then, we kind of go Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday for a little bit. And I do like that because then that can maybe get the guys in a rhythm. You can start to feel like you're getting into something that can be repeated and everything in a good way, hopefully. But got to get that one at Michigan State. That's going to be a tough one, but I think that's a doable one for us and can be a good one to get us back on track. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Thank you very much for tuning in. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for producing the music you hear on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. There you can find out when we're going live. You get those alerts and everything. Follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. There you can find out more information about the show when I'm going to go live. Thanks again for watching, guys. It was a pleasure to meet you guys. Pleasure to be in Bloomington again. Hopefully get to do it again soon. So go out there, guys. Have a wonderful day. And as always, go Hoosiers.